Hello, my name is Matthew, and I'm reading part 3 of Avengers Forever. This is a part of my read along and book club with Steve Donahue and our very special guest, Michael K Vaughn. And I think we've been having a blast with this, even though it's so crazy and hard to describe and hard to understand if you don't know all of the lore of the Marvel universe. And I want to show the cover of whichever part we're on, this comic book. We have that amazing cover. Even when I can't understand a single frame, it is such a joy just spending time with this artwork. It's classic and bold and confident and just fits just right. And the composition of the pages is so exciting. It has a feel of exhilaration, and and it's dynamic. It really keeps your interest throughout the whole thing. We have Giant Man. He can see Giant Man. For whatever reason, he likes to be a little bit bigger than everybody else, even when they're just sitting around. But on this cover, we get a little bit of explanation to summarize and get people up to speed that maybe didn't see the last, didn't read the last issue. And I'm going to read this just because it'll probably do a much better job of recapping. And so it says, this is the narration. And with that, Giant Man triggers the chronal disruption device he wears, and the Avengers are suddenly elsewhere. They are seven of Earth's mightiest heroes, plucked from various points in the Avengers' past, present, and future, and banded together to protect Rick Jones from Immortus, Master of Time, one of their oldest enemies. They don't know why Immortus seeks to kill Rick, and have amassed only the haziest clues as what he's up to. So they've chosen to storm Immortus's citadel in the heart of Limbo. Storm Limbo and find what answers they can. And so the second part that I read last week and made a video recapping turns out to be fairly incidental. The characters pretty much don't know anything more at the end of the run of those issues than they did at the beginning. It's just a series of little adventures. This section, the next 3 issues that I read this morning, is if up till this point the comic book was bonkers, now it's completely off the rails, insane. I mean that the best way it can possibly be taken. But we learn a lot. We finally start getting some idea of what's going on with Rick Jones, what's going on with this randomly selected group of Avengers that have been brought together, why why there might be some reason to have the ones that we have, as in why which ones were selected, and then the motivations of Immortus and then Kang the Conqueror. But first is the insanity. So we have that little recap. We have the Avengers on a time-traveling adventure to save Rick Jones from Immortus, who is a time traveler. And then we get this, which is amazing to look at, but gives you an idea right away of just how how upside down and bewildering this story is. It's so impressive. We're to believe that these Avengers are outside of time. They are in some limbo place. They're going to Immortus, who is the Lord of Time. They're going to go to his lair, and the visual representations of a place that has no time, has no past or present, but is also eternal. So it's also ever present. That representation is done so well, even if it's confusing. It's funny, the Avengers before, so they want to go storm Immortus's citadel, his fortress, and try to unlock and uncover what's going on with Rick Jones. And the first thing they say is we need to stay together. We need to band together because we need to be able to all escape at the same time. And nearly the first thing that happens is they all get disbanded. And it's not their fault. It's just the absolute absurd, inconsistent reality that they are encountering, which makes it difficult to really have any idea of what's going on. The reason is the setting is constantly changing. From moment to moment, buildings look differently. The landscape completely changes. Characters that come in start going through this catalog of how they could have looked at any point in the cinematic serial, the cinematic world. And so this building is the same building. It's just a moment has gone by and now it looks totally different. Then it looks like this. The same structure, we believe. Then we get this fantastic homage to M.C. Escher. And the place is a fun house. It's just this mad, insane fun house. And we see these Avengers just cannot get their bearings. They're just falling all over the place. And that's how they all go flying off into having these separate moments and encounters and little mini adventures. And unlike the mini adventures that we went through before, which it turns out did have its own meaning, but you didn't realize it. This one, these little mini adventures, we start getting a lot of character development that becomes apparent. So we have Captain America, and he comes across this guy. They're in limbo looking for Mortis. They get disbanded, and they start running into, each character runs into people from their past. And it's like these ghosts and demons that are coming to them and either striking terror in their hearts or invigorating revelations inside of them. But this character, who is unrecognizable to me, changes shape again. I'll stick with Captain America for the moment. Hawkeye has this amazing battle. I guess I'm not sticking with Captain America. With this creature that we've seen before. And at some point, the creature decides that instead of killing him, he's going to reverse him through time until he becomes primordial ooze. And Hawkman is no match for this giant creature, but he starts reversing him in time to a point where he was superpowered and he could grow to gigantic proportions. And so we see him get gigantic. He is able to outsmart this giant demon creature. Beats him up, doesn't kill him. Okay, here we go. So then, a moment later, this is that same character that was unrecognizable to me, and now it's obvious that it's Nick Fury, even if it's not Samuel L. Jackson. Yellow Jacket actually gets close to Immortus. And we're in Immortus's lair. See, he's up there, he's about to jump down. Of course, he's not going to take him by surprise. Immortus knows that they're all there, and he gets captured, which becomes very important. You can see him captured there. This goes on. They are all very quickly no longer trying to have a plan or scheme or plot. They're all just so out of water that they want to survive. They want to get back together and make it back to the ship. Rick Jones again was left on the ship. He said, "You stay here," because Immortus is after him. They're on that time traveling Sphinx, which is outside of the time stream, which means that it's the only place that they know of that Immortus can't get to him. Again, there's television screens, and Rick Jones can see what's going on. Decides he waits for no man. He can go off and seek adventure. All of this is happening because Immortus is after him, so he's gonna have his own plan. So they all leave. The Avengers leave Immortus's lair to go back to the time-traveling Sphinx, leaving behind Yellow Jacket. One of Yellow Jacket's revelations was that he really is Hank Pym, which destroys him because it's not the future that he wishes to have. They get back to the Avengers. Here they are. They get back to the spaceship, time-traveling ship, leaving Yellow Jacket behind, and learning that Rick Jones is no longer on the spaceship. Hawkeye, meanwhile, while he was having his own adventure and learning about his past and different Avengers, comes across a magic stick. That's going to be the first issue. And the vision, which seemed to be completely random to me, is one of the first major images that we saw. If I can go back to that. As soon as they go into limbo, there's vision. And it's described as a flash in time, with really no other explanation than that. We learned more about Vision's role in all of this, which did not really, even after a lot of explanation, did not make sense to me even still. But Hawkeye has this magic stick here. And we're on the next issue now. And it's a magic stick that talks and can predict the future and I guess do other things. Well, it turns out why what's his name? No, I forget his name. Hawkeye, while he's trying to break the stick, it transforms into one of these space phantoms. So there's Hawkeye holding this space phantom. And this is a race of creatures. In this issue, we get a whole backstory of Immortus, and we also learn a lot about the space phantoms. In this issue and the next issue, it's fascinating to have this shift in perspective. So far, we've been completely confused because we've been following around the Avengers. And they don't even know what's going on. They know Immortus is after Rick Jones, but it's not like they all came together to go off on an adventure. They were all dropped into this. They don't know what Immortus has in plan, why he's doing all of this, and Rick Jones doesn't really know why either. And so we learn about these space phantoms. And I thought it was so interesting. So there's this limbo place where it's a realm outside of time. And occasionally, any sort of creature, a human or an alien or something magical or fantastical can find itself in this realm. And over time, in this timeless place, it just strips away every identifying feature of what makes you who you are, and you're turned into these space phantoms, or space or time phantoms, whatever they're called. But essentially, these ghosts, they have transformative powers. They can pass through time, but it's nearly a graveyard, and these are tormented souls that come under the bidding of a mortis and live through eternity having to follow whatever a mortis tells them to follow. Now, a mortis, we learn that when he gets into this timeless place, and he's a kind of a time lord and things like that, these creatures, which are called the timekeepers, and look at these mysterious creatures. So they truly rule and control time. Mortis is just a human being. And they make a deal with him to allow him to have the huge amount of power that he has, but still in a much smaller scale compared to the actual timekeepers. And we learn that Immortus is trying to save humanity. Humans are the most dangerous, awful, evil species that has ever lived at any time throughout all of eternity. And if humans become space-faring, they will kill every other civilization eventually. And the Avengers play a critical role in this because eventually they join the Kree-Skrull War, which gets them into intergalactic territory. This is also the reason that we had so much time with that period with Nixon, which was the leading up to the eventual space race, and why Immortus is constantly trying to wrangle in humanity to just be an earthbound species. And so we get all this story. We get callbacks, which admittedly, of course, I don't know from other comic books. But we're told that Immortus has been pulling the strings through the entire run of the adventures of the Avengers. And he might actually have a noble reason for doing so. Even if what he's doing is evil, he has an outcome that is something that's far beyond what the Avengers can know about. It's really interesting. It makes Immortus a much more dynamic evil villain, and the way that it goes about this idea of an evil villain that's constantly pulling the strings and always there typically feels a little disappointing. I kind of think of like Blofeld in the James Bond series, where it feels like it's tacked on at the end. This feels really satisfying. Look at all this amazing artwork. The Avengers eventually do turn into this Avengers warring military group that we saw at the very beginning of the issue. This is like a possible timeline. I can't even get into what goes on with the Vision and the Human Torch, and whether there's two Human Torches or two Visions, or if Vision's a robot or Human Torch is a robot. I really didn't understand any of that. And then we move on from there. And so this whole issue is this Space Phantom explaining Immortus's backstory, and it ends with a Yellow Jacket and Immortus bursting into the time-traveling Sphinx, and we're told that now Yellow Jacket has switched sides because he doesn't like his future that he's destined for, and Immortus can change that. Then, the last issue, and this is amazing, we then follow Kang the Conqueror. Look at that incredible cover. We follow Kang the Conqueror. And he is in some other timeless realm. There he is. And we get his whole life story. He takes off that purple and blue helmet, and he is Immortus. And so Kang the Conqueror is also Immortus. He's also Pharaoh Rottentut. He might also be Doctor Doom. I think it was alluded to that he could have also been Doctor Doom. And we see Kang on a series of adventures. And it's so interesting that it's pointed out that Immortus is more of a thinker and a planner. And he doesn't resort to violence. He's sort of this mastermind at the center of all these things going around. Whereas Kang is an adventurer and a fighter and a conqueror. As he becomes more powerful and takes on... So there's a really interesting personality difference that opposes one another, although they're the same person. And since they're time travelers, they're all zooming around together. It's not like it's linear. They're running into each other at different ages and different times. We have Pharaoh Rottentut, or whatever his name is. In ancient Egypt, the Fantastic Four get there somehow. See, it just has this incredible... It's incredibly imaginative. And we just see Kang going through his whole thing. All this stuff's going on. He is not happy. He gets more powerful, gets more responsibility, starts having these like administrative tasks, which is not fighting and conquering. And then he has a woman that he loves. And he does something involving time, because he can regenerate and he never dies. And he's able to bring back the woman that he loves, but he starts springing off all of these other timelines. We see this one, a room full of Kangs. So the last two issues of this thing are amazing, because we have the group of the Avengers with Rick Jones. Then there's Immortus and Kang, and the Avengers don't know what's going on. The Space Phantom gets us up to speed on Immortus's background and motivations, and then this issue, which is still just as insane and crazy. I love the color palette. So this whole run we're with Kang. Everything is blue and purple and green. It seems to me all of this issue, this whole thing is running up to the point where we were at the very beginning of the issue with the Supreme Intelligence, when Rick Jones made his first appearance in this issue, Kang the Conqueror. So we have Kang showing up here. And I think this is the same moment from when Kang arrived in the first, his first appearance in this run, I think. When he arrives, Rick Jones, who left the spaceship, went to the same point in time and says, the final battle begins. So it's not like I can make sense of what's going on in this thing. That's my best attempt. So Of course, I'll be very interested to hear what what Steve and Michael K. Vaughn have to say. Um, but that's the best that I can do. The artwork is just magnificent. So thank you for watching. If you've been reading, if you've read it before, please leave a comment if you would like. Thank you for watching, and take care.